Stephen C. Productions.
I grew up in an abusive household. So horror kind of was that escape for me where I was able to watch a scary movie when I was a kid, and I was able to understand that I'm not alone in feeling pain like that. So it grabbed me and pulled me in, and I suddenly didn't feel alone. So that's a big part of what horror is for me. It's a solidarity in pain.
You're listening to Talking from Experience. If you're an experienced listener, welcome back. And if you didn't know, you better learn. My name is Steven, and I am your host. On Talking from Experience, I have casual, insightful, and entertaining conversations with community leaders, creative minds, and other interesting people from diverse facets of society. My goal with every conversation is to help you understand the world through their experiences. Today, my guest is Charlie Osborn. Charlie is a photographer, filmmaker, and as of recently, a podcaster. His show, Conjuring Oddities, features himself narrating some of the scariest stories on the internet. We'll be talking about his inspiration for starting his podcast, horror as a genre, podcasting in general, and so much more. I know this episode is a little late, but I promise you, you did not wait in vain. Let's get it. Did you just start doing the creepypasta?
Yeah, so it was literally, I'd say 4 weeks ago. No, let me go back a little bit farther. My girlfriend had been talking to me about my voice, and I can't stand the sound of my own voice. I'd rather listen to an animal vomit than my own voice. So I've never considered doing anything like this. And she kind of harped on it a bit and was like, you have a great voice for this. Just do it. Give it a shot. See what happens. So finally I buckled and I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I enjoyed doing it. So I just kept doing it. And that was it. I bought this microphone like 30 days ago.
That's really cool. What kind of mic?
A Shure MV7.
Okay, yeah, that's the one. That's the one everyone gets.
Yeah. How long did you say you've been podcasting?
So I started in, I want to say 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, where I produced my first podcast. And it's funny because my very first one was a horror narration podcast.
Nice.
But I did more allegedly true stories.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to get it. You know what? I was considering doing like true crime stuff, but then I thought, like, what are the legal implications there? Like, I don't want to get sued by a family who, I put out a story and they're like, this didn't actually happen. You can't say these things about us,
Well, it wasn't true crime. It was more allegedly true, like paranormal stuff.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's like, I saw a werewolf or, you know what I mean?
Horror is my favorite thing in the world. Well, that's not really true. The beach is my favorite thing in the world, but horror is a very close second. And I grew up with horror. I've been around horror my whole life. I love it so much. It's the reason why I went to film school. It's the reason why I do what I'm doing now. And I am such a skeptic when it comes to literally everything. Everything. I am the skeptic of skeptics. It's really strange to be in my brain and love the things that I do.
So you've never had like an actual like experience where it was like, that was weird. Like I have no explanation for that.
No, honestly, I haven't. And every time something like that occurs, I go out of my way to find out why it happened. And I'm always able to find out why it happened. And it's just, it crushes me a little bit because I want that experience. I want to be a believer so bad. When my brain goes into figure it out mode, it doesn't stop. I can't sleep. It's all I can think about. And it doesn't, I mean, until my brain forces me to think about something else, of course, because, ADHD. I don't know if you're familiar with the fun that is ADHD or not.
Yeah, actually, my wife the other day sent me a video of like what it's like in the mind of someone with ADHD. Shoot.
I can tell you that I know it's different for certain people, and it's definitely not the same thing for everyone. But when it comes to my form of it, I guess I'll call it, constantly in my head there's dialogue between multiple people. They're all me, of course. It's not like I'm hearing voices, but there'll be 30 of me in my head at a time, all talking together about different things, and focus is almost impossible a lot of the time. And you have to find things that will cause you to focus. And a lot of time it's just a rise in dopamine that causes you to focus, which is part of the reason why everyone that talks about ADHD kind of jumps right to the, oh, well, you jump from this thing to this thing to this thing to the next thing. And it's just because you're looking for that release of dopamine that causes you to want to do the next thing. And once you start doing that next thing, eventually it kind of just like fizzles out a little bit and you're not getting quite as much. And suddenly your brain is like, oh, well, you can't do this anymore. You got to move on to the next thing and then the next thing. So even doing the podcast, don't get me wrong, I love doing it. It's so much fun, but there are times while I'm recording or while I'm editing that I'm just like, oh God, I don't want to do this anymore. I got to move on to the next thing. So you have to force yourself to continue and move on. And that's been my entire life, as far back as I can remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is it like, does everyone have ADHD from the beginning, or is that sometimes something that can like show up later in life?
As far as I know, you're born with it. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there's some discussion. There's a little wiggle room there as far as discussions that are happening right now. But I believe you're born with it. I wasn't diagnosed with it until maybe 2 years ago. So my entire life, everyone thought I was just either really lazy or stupid. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, if this has been happening since like the beginning of humankind, like back then, I feel like it was probably almost a superpower, right? Those were the people that survived because you're paying attention to like everything around you. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna notice that lion in the bushes.
I'll tell you though, sometimes it makes it hard to pay attention to everything around you because you've got so much going on in your head. Like there are things that my brain will laser focus on. Like when I'm out, I will be aware of every single human being around me, knowing that, you know, what's going on around me. But while I'm home, like just yesterday, I put, what was it? Garlic salt, like a plastic container of garlic salt in the fridge because I just wasn't thinking and I just put it away. And this is a big thing with people with ADHD and it's kind of funny to me anyway, but I put my keys in the fridge a lot. Just because I'm putting things away everywhere and I'll pull my keys out of my pocket rather than hanging them on the wall, I'll throw them in the fridge. And then the next day not be able to find my keys anywhere until I go for like, you know, a bottle of water. See my keys sitting there in the fridge next to the mayo. And another really interesting thing, I don't want to turn this into the ADHD show or anything like that, but caffeine, you know, obviously caffeine gives everyone a bit of pep, or some people it just makes them, you know, feel super wired and crazy. When I take caffeine in, it actually relaxes the hell out of me. I can fall asleep after drinking like 4 cups of coffee.
Yeah, I was actually listening to somebody talk about that on a podcast the other day and saying that the reason that is because caffeine causes your pupils to dilate, which, funny enough, it narrows your field of vision, therefore allowing you to focus on more on certain things and help you block out those other things around you. Yeah. And the effect it would have on ADHD is like, yeah, like there's less things in your field of vision, so you're able to focus, and then it gives your mind like a break.
Honestly, that's one of the things that I love about doing the podcast. It gives me that thing to focus on, especially in the moment, because if I'm sitting here with my head in this sound booth box, whatever you call it, it kind of, especially the sounds from the outside world, it shuts it all down, and it allows me to laser focus on the thing that's making me happy at the moment. I worry about what's going to happen once it's not, and how hard it's going to be for me to push through that plateau and continue on doing it. I mean, I know I can because I've done it before with other things. So it's not concerning to me in that, oh no, I'm going to quit. It's concerning to me in that, how is it going to affect other things in my life while I push through this? So that's something. But I mean, as of right now, the podcast is great. It's been helping a lot with everything, as in general horror has in my life throughout the majority of it. Just always being able to go back to, and it's I don't know if it sounds silly or not, but when it comes to horror movies, books, short story, anything involving horror, there's a huge comfort in it for me. And I like I said earlier, I grew up around it. I grew up with it. It's always been a big part of my life. And as far as film goes, it's been the biggest part of my life. It just keeps me, I'm happy, I guess.
Yeah, I like to think of it like, at least I'm not going through what they're going through.
Honestly, and so here's the funny thing about that. That's really, so my childhood was less than, well, it was less than. I grew up in an abusive household, and so horror kind of was that escape for me, where I was able to watch a scary movie when I was a kid, and I was able to understand that I'm not alone in feeling pain like that. So it kind of just it grabbed me and pulled me in, and I suddenly didn't feel alone. So that's a big part of what horror is for me. It's a solidarity in pain, and that's always been really comforting to me as well. And I saw my first horror movie, and when I was probably around 5 years old, I saw Child's Play. I don't know if you've seen it or not. But that is not a movie that a 5-year-old should be watching. And then after that, I was hooked after seeing that for the first time. And I would sneak out of my bedroom at night to go watch like Tales from the Crypt, which is a show that a 5, 6, 7-year-old should not be watching.
Well, they made an animated adaptation of it,
which is probably my favorite cartoon ever. No joke, I love it.
Yeah, that was really cool. I remember watching that. I thought, this is so cool.
I have every episode on my computer.
Wow.
So yeah, it gave me almost like a sense of community because of the fact that other people suffered like I was suffering, And I'm not saying like I was being thrown out of windows or stabbed by machetes or whatever, but abuse is different for everyone and how they handle it and how they move on from it. So being able to experience horror at the time that I did and in the way that I did, for me anyway, it was very healthy, and it pushed me to want to be in that world, which led me to going to film school. Horror is the reason I went to film school, and it made me want to create. It made me a more creative person.
Yeah, I think what you saw was the relatability, right? Like you saw the fear in people and them wanting to get away, and you know what I mean? You were like, this is something I can relate to.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting because of how different it is for everyone, but at the same time, if I experience fear, it probably feels similar to someone else experiencing fear, but what's causing that fear it could be different. Like someone, it could be anything from someone being afraid of spiders to someone being afraid of a serial killer. Obviously, spiders and serial killers are very different. Like that's one side of the spectrum to the other, but it could cause the exact same fear in someone. And at the same time, those people are experiencing those fears in very different ways. It just, there's so much. Like I am the farthest thing from a therapist that you could possibly get, but it's just super interesting to me. Fear in general is incredibly interesting to me. I knew someone who, and actually this isn't the only person I've heard say this, but I've heard people say that, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly how they said it, but they said that fear isn't real. Essentially, they said that fear is something that is more, it's a tool that you should use more than anything else, that it doesn't actually exist, and you can take that feeling and turn it into whatever you want it to be, and use it to better things. Like they kind of said that it's different than like happiness or sadness. That fear is something that you can mold into another thing and use it. Whereas happiness, if you're happy, you want to be happy. It is useful as its own thing. And even sadness is useful as its own thing because you can get out emotion and you can, calm yourself or, however you would work that out. But fear, on the other hand, you can change it, you can mold it, you can swap it out for other feelings, and you can turn it into something that is useful in its own way. I guess I don't know if any of that made sense, but when they said it to me, it made perfect sense, and it's kind of how I've looked at fear since then. And fear has become it's become something that I've used to better my life.
Right. Like, I mean, you said it yourself earlier. You go into figure it out mode.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's how it works out for me. If I'm fearful of something, I try to figure it out, and it makes it easier for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something I've always told people too. It's like, it's something that you don't like, that you're not comfortable with. And, I mean, it's up to you, like, to change it,
Right. Yeah. For sure.
So who was your inspiration for the creepypasta? Like, did you listen to any big YouTube channels or podcasts?
Yeah. So I think the first creepypasta podcast I ever listened to was I think it's Creeps McPasta, and then I believe he's this British guy. I don't know his real name. I don't know if anyone knows his real name, but he's pretty big. And then there's Let's Read, which is a great podcast who does horror stories and creepypasta. And then there's Corpse Husband, who I think is probably the biggest out of all of them, getting deals like crazy as far as I know. I feel so strange about the idea of people looking for my voice to listen to. It's an incredibly foreign concept to me, because even when I started out in wanting to work in film, my idea was be an actor, go to auditions. And I lived in Jersey, so I was able to just hop over the water to New York to go to auditions whenever I want, which I did. And when I was doing that, I was still young. I think I was 18 when I started doing that. And I didn't really think about any of the, like, oh God, what if someone sees you? What if someone makes fun of you? What, anything like that. Because I was a kid and I was really excited about it. So once I got a little older, maybe a year or two later, and I thought to myself, what are you doing? You're putting yourself out there like this for people to see you. And that's weird. Like, you're not an actor. You can't do that. So that's when I started to think, okay, maybe working behind the scenes would be even better. And that's when I decided to go to film school. And I moved out to California, went to film school, learned a lot, met some really cool people, and then went back to Jersey and got a job as a photographer. So where life takes you is weird. But bringing me back to now, I think about that and how I was worried about what I looked like and who was seeing me and acting in front of strangers. And it's the exact same thing that's happening now. When I'm talking, I'm thinking about people listening to me, people, judging my voice, people thinking it's terrible. And I think it's terrible. I think I have one of the most grating voices I've ever heard. It is awful to me. And it's just so bad. And the idea that other people, that I might be making other people listen to it, is really tough for me to wrap my mind around. But I just kind of took the leap and listened to the people around me that love me and care about me, and decided, okay, well, they're not lying to me, so I'm going to do it and just see what happens. But yeah, my voice, I don't understand how people enjoy listening to my voice. It doesn't make sense to me.
What's funny is that when I did mine, I actually used the pitch shifter on my voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was like, my voice sounded way deeper than it is. And
okay.
it was just really me, kind of the same thing. Like, I didn't want people to hear my actual voice, and
yeah.
But I feel like it really added to the to the soundscape of things,
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't change the pitch of my voice or anything like that when I'm recording. I don't really change much. I just clean up the sound a little bit, like the clicks and pops and some static, and that's really all I do, because I don't know anything about sound editing. I know nothing about sound editing. Everything I know, I taught myself in about a week using YouTube to clean up anything in Audacity. So
yeah, Audacity is pretty strong. It's a pretty powerful program. I like it a lot.
There's so much you can do with that program, but I don't understand most of it. So I just try to keep it as basic as possible.
Yeah, I mean that's the better thing to do. Like as an audio editor, like the least you want to put in the least amount of like actually tampering with the audio, because and then it just increases the work, and I mean it makes it sound less authentic.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Not like video editing where the more you get to edit, the more fun it is. I could sit there and edit a 2-minute short for days, weeks even, and just find everything to change, and then I'll change it, and then I'll be like, well, you know what, maybe that'll look a little bit better than this, or maybe that'll flow a little bit better than this, and I get lost in it into an unhealthy degree. It's wild. Video editing is one of my favorite things in the world to do, and that's something else that I would like to eventually get into, is not just narrating these stories, but actually shooting video to go along with them. Because right now on YouTube, I'm putting like stock video behind the stories just to kind of give some sort of visual behind them, so people on YouTube will still watch, so to get the views or whatever. But I would like to eventually shoot my own to put behind the narration.
Yeah, that's really something that I never got into. I never even posted on YouTube. I just stayed in the podcast realm, and that's because same thing. Like my video skills are not the best. I was just like, you know what, I'm not even gonna bother. So what I did was I would just do like background like noise.
Okay.
My episodes would be related around a theme. So like the first episode was like strange occurrences on U.S. highways.
Okay, cool.
So the entire episode was a recording of like a car. Like it sounds like you're in a car.
Nice.
And you hear the engine and the tires going down the road. And
that's good though. I mean, people love that. Man, I tried doing that with mine and I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get the levels right. I couldn't figure out the right sounds to put in the right places. I was so bad. So I was like, you know what? I'm just giving my voice. I'm done with it. I'm not even going to bother with the extra sound. I can't do it. It takes a skill to do that I don't possess. So I just kind of was like, all right, well, I mean, you know, I think people will be all right with just my voice, I guess. They don't need the extras, and we'll see what happens. So that's what I did.
Yeah, and it's really personal preference. Like, sometimes I'm like, I just want the voice. Like, I think Let's Read does a real good job of not doing any sound effects and stuff. And what is it? I think it's Darkness Prevails, who sometimes he'll put an effect on his voice and it catches me off guard. Cause
oh, really?
Yeah, because he'll be talking like normal, and then he'll do the sound effect for whatever it is the person's describing, and then it's like this deep guttural noise, and I'm like, oh shoot, like I'm trying to go to sleep right now. Hold on.
One thing, right? One thing that always throws me off when I listen to other narration podcasts is when it's a male doing the podcast and they try to do what they feel is a quote unquote female voice, and that always throws me. It never lands with me. I can't get into it. It takes me completely out of the story when they do it. That's rough.
Yeah, I saw somebody leave a comment on Let's Read, one of Let's Read videos, and he's like, yeah, it's so funny. He's like, he starts out the story, I'm a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, I can appreciate it though. Him sticking to his guns on using his voice even to say stuff like that. Like, I appreciate that, because if he tried to sound like what he believes a 13-year-old girl sounds like, I wouldn't be able to listen to it. That'd be tough for me.
Yeah.
With my podcast, I just try to be as naturally me as possible. Just because I know that if I try to put on like an act or a show or something like that, or I try to change my voice in some way, I know that eventually that's going to get old for me and I'm not going to be able to continue doing it. And I want to continue doing this for as long as I can. So I tried to make it as easy as I possibly could for myself to do that. And by me just talking and not having to do much in the editing, that is how I kind of cemented the possibility for me to continue doing it. Because I know myself well enough to know that if I was doing a voice or acting or something like that, there's no part of me that would be able to continue going for very long.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about podcasting is I mean, you can be yourself. Like, I mean, it's preferred to be genuine, you know?
I've read that. Yeah.
Yeah. So even with the one I was doing with the pitch shifter, like that's really all I was doing to my voice was pitching down the couple semitones and sounding a little deeper. But like when I was reading, I wasn't doing anything special with my intonations or something. I was just reading.
Right.
And I mean, people seem to like it. I think I'm gonna try my best to start that up again, because literally I only did 3 episodes, and
yeah, for sure.
I still got people to this day telling me like, dude, you got to make more. Like, those were really good.
Yeah, go for it. You should. You definitely should. I feel like there's probably enough room out there for as many people that want to do this as possible. So go for it for 100%.
Yeah, that's another thing about the podcasting community. Like, it's not a scarcity mindset, you know?
Yeah.
It's everyone. Well, I can't really say everyone, but a lot of people, you know, they don't really see it as competition, you know? It's like, let's help each other out. Like, this is a collaborative space. Like, there's room for everybody, you know?
Right. And I've noticed that. I went a little crazy and joined like 150 Facebook groups for podcasting just to kind of get a feel of what the universe is like. And everyone has been so helpful, especially in the groups where like you're trying to match up guests with shows. Everyone has been super helpful. And a big part of the reason why I feel like podcasting is very different from other platforms or other media types is because you could have 70 podcasters that have the same story. Each one of them is going to sound different.
Right.
You and I could put out an episode of the exact same show, but we're going to both sound different. And depending on the sound of that person's voice might attract other people that the other show might not attract. So that to me is why it feels like it's such it's so different than any other media or platform or anything like that. And I think that's really incredible.
Yeah, man. Even some of the voice, like you just maybe their character or something like that. Like, I listen to a couple podcasters that's like, they don't have the best voice. Like, I listen to Steve-O from Jackass.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. His voice is not the best voice, but
right.
I mean, I like a lot of his guests. He creates good content. He's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
And like, I can get past that, you know? Like, I'm supporting him, you know?
Right. Yeah. I subscribe to his show too. Yeah, it's great. I agree with you. There are so many different little things about any given show that you might love, you might not like, but if it all comes together in some way, then you're going to attract people. So it seems anyway. And there are almost 8 billion people in the world. Like, you know, someone's going to listen to you. Someone's going to like to hear your voice or what you have to say or how you say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's still strange to me. Like, especially doing this show, like I'm using my natural voice, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have an outline, and it's just like, you know, I still get hit up by people like, oh, that was a great show. Like, that was a great guest. And I'm like, oh man, you guys sat there and listened to me for 40 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of fumble around.
I get it. I actually had someone reach out to me on YouTube. I had posted the podcast on YouTube. It was the second one, I believe. And they said something along the lines of, this is great. You have a great voice. Like, you know, let me know when the next one's going to be posted. And that was my second podcast. And I was like, someone actually liked that enough to comment that they want to hear another one. What? That was mind blowing.
I think a lot of people who end up doing some type of creative work, like, it's our own self-doubt.
Yeah.
And it's when you're in the mind of a creator, you have all these, at least for me, like, I have all these people that I look up to, that I admire, who do the same thing. And I'm just like, I'll never be at that level. Like, you know, I'm lucky if I get one person to listen. Right. And, you know, and then you get other people telling you like, oh, you're doing a good job. And it's almost like I automatically start to compare, like, yeah, but I'm not this person or that person.
Right.
And I have to remind myself that, like, you know, I can't try to be exactly like them because they're already doing that. You know?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I'm a firm believer in those people that we're not were also at a point at some time in the position where they were saying the exact same thing. Well, I'm not that person, so I can't compare myself to that person. I'll never be that person. And those are the people that we look at and we're like, we'll never be that person. You know what I mean? So everyone starts somewhere, right? And I think the other thing is, I think it's super important to keep moving forward. Consistency, it seems, is probably the most important thing when it comes to any of this stuff. Just be consistent, and eventually something will happen, as long as, you know, you're not, I guess, as long as you're not putting something up that's just like downright awful in the way that maybe it's hateful, or just, you know, I don't know, something that people really would not care to listen to. I feel like, you know, there's an audience for everyone in some way or another.
We stand on the shoulders of the ones that came before us. Like,
Right.
I heard my wife was listening in on something I was listening to, and she goes, "Man, like those people, they sound so confident and and like they're so sure in what they're saying." I'm like, "Yeah, but they've also been doing it for like 10, 15 years."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just that practice, that consistency. Like, this is their full-time job now.
Right.
You know? And it's like it kind of it's just years of experience, and I'm just, you know, hoping to get to that level, even in the experience.
Yeah. That's the dream. I get that. Yeah, I don't know. For me, that seems so far off, just because I started so recently, just having 3 episodes up and not really having a full grasp on how to even do everything yet. And I don't know if I'll ever have a full grasp on it. I mean, the people that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years, did they have a full grasp on it? Who knows? I think because stuff like this grows and changes so often, that if you're not willing to grow and change with it and learn everything, you get left in the wayside and forgotten about.
Yeah, and I think it's about learning and growing to what pertains to you. Like, there might be some aspect of this that, you know, it doesn't apply to what you're trying to do. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it's like, it's not, you don't have to learn everything. Just learn everything that's going to make your
Right.
job easier. Like, your experience doing this fun, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like once it stops becoming fun, then you've lost the whole point of doing it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's funny because, so I don't know if you're familiar with the Clapper app. It sounds like an STD when I say it out loud, but so it's like TikTok. They launched, I want to say 3-4 years ago. And I found them early on, and it's literally just a clone of TikTok. But I wound up posting videos on there because I was not on TikTok at that point. And I wound up posting videos on there. I wound up with I have now around 80,000 followers. I think I just went over 80,000 followers on that app maybe a couple of months ago. And I was posting stupid videos. I was like making ramen with like weird liquids, like making ramen with like Diet Coke and stuff like that. And people loved it. And it was fun for me to do it. So I just kept doing it and kept getting followers and comments, and like everyone was, you know, I wound up with like actual fans who were there. So on Clapper, there's this thing called Clapper Fam, where people can kind of like donate money to your cause being your show, and so that you can build the show more and more. And I actually had people sign up and were like paying me monthly to do this. And it was wild to me that people liked what I was doing so much that they were willing to like invest in the show. And I got to a point where it just became kind of redundant for me, and I was getting bored with it and not enjoying it. So I stopped.
Wow.
I just couldn't keep going. And I told everyone that watched me from the beginning, I was like, I'm going to do this until I don't do it. And once I'm bored with it, or once it's not enjoyable for me, I'm done. Every dollar that they gave me went into the show. But I put out a video explaining my feelings towards it and talking to them, and you know, telling them that I wasn't done posting videos, but I'm done with that part of things because it wasn't genuine anymore. It wasn't fun for me. So it would just be me acting for the sake of doing it, and it would eventually become garbage. And I didn't want to do that to the people that were invested in what I was doing. So I moved on and started doing other things, and I'm still trying to find my new niche in that. But I actually did recently start reposting or start posting new videos like that because I thought it would be fun to start again. And it became fun. I really just wound up taking a little break and then came back and started doing the same videos, and people are enjoying them and I'm enjoying it. And then I have 2 TikTok accounts. One is that where I'm posting those videos as well. And then I have the Conjuring Oddities account to go along with the podcast, which is a mishmash of just anything I could think to put up in regards to either horror or the podcast itself. And it is tough going on TikTok to gain traction of any kind. It is not easy.
Wow. People on there make it seem so easy.
Oh man, it is. I can't imagine. You know what? Just knowing like behind the scenes, the amount of work I put into one video for it to get like 200 views is like, it's soul crushing sometimes, but gotta get the name out there, I guess, somehow.
Yeah. And also, I mean, how you were talking about earlier, it became just something that it was an act and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's called audience capture. When you basically become a cartoon of yourself. Like
mm-hmm.
you let the audience take control of your life. Like you got people. Who's that guy? Nick Avocado.
Oh yeah.
Like he started really just. I think one of his first videos where that went viral was like vegan tries a burger for the first time in 10 years or something like that. And then he just started taking suggestions from his audience. Like, what else should I try to the point where he was just eating just massive amounts of garbage and, upwards of 300 pounds now.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I didn't know who he was until maybe a few months ago. I saw a video someone posted about him and how his life turned out. And it was just, it's terrifying to think about that. But I actually do that though. Like I'll give my viewers the chance to suggest, but I kind of narrow it down so that it's still me doing what I'm doing. Like so with the whole ramen thing, I'll cook. I know it's silly, but people like it, so and it's fun for me. I'll cook like, I don't know, a packet of just like 25-cent ramen in like grape juice and then taste it. So I'll give people the option to choose the next liquid that I cook it in. And I mean, I give like some guidance, and I'm like, I'm not cooking it in anything that's gonna cause me to go into anaphylactic shock. I'm not gonna cook it in something that's gonna poison me. I'm not gonna cook, like, I give them some guidelines.
Right, not gonna cook it in bleach.
Right, yeah. I give them some guidelines, and I'm like, and let's see what we can come up with to make this fun. And that's what is most important to me with that side of things, is that it's fun. If it becomes unfun or not fun, then I'm done with it and I don't want to do it anymore. So, but the Conjuring Oddities podcast, that is something that it's a little bit different. I am just doing what I do, and that's it. I don't see myself ever like letting viewers or listeners guide that, really, not in that way anyway. Obviously I'll look at analytics and stuff like that and try to figure out, what's doing better, what's doing worse, because I still, obviously, without listeners, what do you have? You just have yourself talking in a room alone. So, but I want people to listen to me because they like listening to me, not because they like listening to what my listeners like listening to. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, it's wild because even me, like, I still ask people like to suggest like topics and guests and stuff like that. Yeah. But for the most part, like, I have people reaching out to me sometimes and say, "Oh, can I be on the show?" And I'm just like, "Oh man, like, what you're trying to talk about is not really like, it doesn't interest me or stuff like that." And it's difficult to turn people down because at the same time, it's almost like, you want to be on my show, like, right, you want to talk to me, like, but also it's like, man, like I have to not be like, ooh, I'll talk to anybody, you know, because then I'll end up talking to some crazy people, you know, talking about
It could be fun.
who knows what, you know. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've actually talked to somebody about, you know, doing a show where it's all like parody. You know?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and I was like, I could probably do some accents and stuff like that.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Comedy Bang Bang? That's
Yeah.
another podcast I swear by. I love that show. It's similar to that. It's super fun show to watch. I've been watching that for a year, or watching. Actually, they did have a show for a little while on Netflix. It was not very good. It lasted a season, I think.
Wow.
But the show on their podcast is absolutely amazing. I would tell anyone to listen to that podcast. It's great. And it's 100% comedy, which isn't normally my thing, but man, they got me right away. It just the whole layout of the show is incredible.
Yeah. What's funny is when, especially doing this show, I get a lot of requests for like, what are they? Like lifestyle coach, mindset coach.
Oh,
You know what I
really?
mean? Yeah. And I'm like, man, I made a joke one time. I was like, you know, I don't think that's a real job.
Oh, no.
Like telling people that it's like all you have to do is change your mindset, you know?
I don't really understand the whole mindset coach thing. I get it. Like my issue with that is if it was that easy to just change your mindset, wouldn't everyone just do that? You know? And I am a firm believer in therapy. I think everyone should be in therapy. I don't care how happy you are, how well things are going for you. I think therapy is an amazing thing. And I think it can help so many people as long as you have the right therapist. Not every therapist is right for everyone. But I do believe that it is super, super helpful. I also understand that not everyone can afford it because it's ridiculously expensive. But anyone that can afford it, I believe, even if you think your life is perfect, go to therapy. I think it is probably one of the most helpful things that anyone can experience. And there should not be a stigma or shame around it, which there unfortunately is. I don't know why, but there is. And I think that if more people were able to experience that, I honestly think the world would be a much happier, healthier place. Also, there would be a lot less need for the coaches that you're referring to, though, as well. So they might be out of jobs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the issue I have with it is that they're not really any kind of like mental health professional, right? Like I feel like someone reaching out to like a mindset coach or a lifestyle coach,
Yeah.
they might be like some deeper seated issues there that they need professional help from.
Right.
And really what it is that these self-proclaimed coaches, their degree comes from like another self-proclaimed coach that they gave money to take the course to become a coach. And have you heard of there's a YouTuber, his name is CoffeeZilla. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't.
So he dedicates his life to exposing these fake like motivational people.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and there's a lot of them. Like they go on and they do what do they call it? I think it's like influencer, like I think they call it lifestyle porn. and it's the people that are like on Instagram, like, guys, last year I was broke, I was living on food stamps, and then like in the background they have like the Ferrari, and you know,
yeah
they're like surrounded by just like women in bikinis and whatnot,
right.
And they're like, guys, like if you sign up for my course right now, like I will teach you the secret to changing your mindset so that you can become as successful as I am. And really how they made all that money to rent that Ferrari for the video was by selling their course.
That's pretty great. I'm gonna have to check that out because that's funny. But yeah, I mean, there are so many scams online. It's impossible to tell anymore what is a scam, what isn't a scam. I mean, and are you familiar with Ty Lopez?
No.
No. Okay. So Ty Lopez, as far as at least in my world, was the first person to really pop with this type of thing. He rented, from what I understand, let me not say that I know that this is what happened, but from what I understand and what I've read myself, he he rented a mansion, he rented a few Ferraris or Lamborghinis or whatever, and shot a couple of different YouTube videos to then post as ads on YouTube and his own little videos. And he went through this like 10-step process on how to make what he's made and do what he does. The 10-step process was it was nothing. It was literally, I watched the 10-step process out of curiosity, and it was nothing. It was pretty much leading to, now if you buy my course, I'll tell you how to really do it. But the funny thing is, he made almost all of his money starting out by selling books from Amazon as an Amazon affiliate. So many people watched his videos and then looked at his not the comments, but like the little bio or whatever underneath the YouTube video, and there were 2 or 3 books from an Amazon affiliate link listed there. And he put, like, from what I understand, his whole life savings into making just these few YouTube ads, and then made every dollar he has in the beginning from those Amazon affiliate links by lying to people in these videos. And now he's doing TED Talks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of the lifestyle people, like, they do the exact same thing, and it's always a YouTube ad.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you click right now, like, this is a live seminar, it's not really live. Like, they have fake, like, chat bots in a chat that you can actually type in to make it look like there's people there, like, watching
yeah,
watching the seminar. And it's like that, like you said, like, it's nothing. The advice they're saying is, it's not really gonna help you with anything. It's not giving insight into anything. It's really just like, you gotta get out there, you gotta put yourself, put your money where your mouth is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the same thing on TikTok. It's just a little bit different. Now it's everyone on TikTok this is how lazy people make money. And then they show this like step-by-step how to sell things on Amazon or something like that. And it's just, I don't understand how these people sleep at night, but this stuff just gets churned out. And unfortunately, there are so many people that have not either experienced it or have not been exposed to it enough to realize like what's happening. And then they go and try it, and then they wind up spending like their savings on trying to do this, and it fails miserably because the information they got was false. And also, I would like to apologize to any of the Ty Lopez fans out there if I am wrong about that, but that's what I've read about him. So don't come at me for that. I don't know.
Yeah. And a lot of those people, they just make their money off of the course they sell.
Yeah. And it's really, really shady. I don't know.
Me and my wife have this running joke where it's like, we'll stop and just be like, why do we have morals? Like, it would be so much easier if we just didn't care.
Right?
Like, why do we have to be good people?
It would make life much easier.
Right? We'd be much more successful, at least monetarily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I definitely think so. But yeah, that's why I kind of I lean more towards creating things that didn't already exist rather than trying to tell people how to create their own things, because I don't feel like, let me step back. There are people that do that are being genuine and are helpful. Of course, I would never try to take away from those people. But for me, it seems like the vast majority of people telling others how to live are in it to make a buck and don't actually care about those other people. That's the main reason why I chose the path that I did and want to create and add new things to the world for people to experience rather than tell people how to experience those things.
Right.
So hence the whole podcast thing and me wanting to make short films, and just it's a creativity that I want to get out into the world, whether someone wants to experience it or not. But I love the idea of giving people the option of having some sort of outlet and not having like, do this and pay for it so I can shove it down your throat and you'll get nothing from it. And I think entertainment, and I know a lot of people a lot of people disagree with this, but I think entertainment is literally one of the most important things in the world. And I think it always has been, it's always going to be, because without happiness, what's the point? You know? And to be able to, even on a small scale, to be able to add some sort of enjoyment to someone's life is very meaningful to me. And I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to cure cancer. I'm not going to save lives. So I want to add positivity to the world in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I want to leave this planet having made someone or something better off than it was when I was here. And this is my way of attempting to do that.
I think that's what it's about, like positivity, right? And it's funny because yeah, creating like horror content, like some people from an outside perspective who can't really relate, they'll be like, how are you adding positivity,
right,
telling the story about somebody who got eaten by a monster? But it's like, well, it like you said, like it can help somebody, like, it's an escape, or
right,
it just encourage people to have a imagination, it take you out of where you're at and put you in this scenario, and really, like, I guess show people that, like you said, this is out there, right? It's not realistic, but in a sense it's relatable,
right?
And really can make a difference in some people.
And I think that's important. I think it's important to be able to do that for others. And not everyone can do it, and that's not a bad thing either. And I'm not even suggesting that I can do it. I'm not saying that, but it's something that I aspire to do. I would love to hear back from people saying that, I helped them in some way. And I mean, a little bit of that is selfish. I'm not going to, obviously, it feels good. So I'd be hard pressed to find a good deed that isn't a little selfish at the very least, because anytime you do something good for someone else or something else, it feels good, which is inherently a little on the selfish side. So yeah, I mean, I want to help people. I want to make other people be able to forget about the bad for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or however long I can keep my voice going for. And I think that because that's what my experience was with this genre of creativity, it makes it easier for me to help get it out there. And I would love, and even more than all of that, I would love to be a part of the reason why this community grows. I would love, and I'm going to get flamed for this, but I want horror to be more mainstream, and not in the way that I want necessarily that, they need to throw more money at it to make bigger productions and write better stories, nothing like that. But I want as many people to love horror as possible. And I want it to get in front of the eyes and ears of as many people as possible. And yeah, that does require money, but like with have you seen Skinamarink? The horror, it came out not too long ago. It was just released a few weeks ago on Shudder, maybe. And it is a very polarizing movie. Everyone either loved it or hated it. And it was a very experimental film, which I thought was great. I genuinely liked the movie, and the main reason why I liked it is because they went so out of the box with it and tried something very new and got it on a major streaming platform. That is not something that would have been that wouldn't have happened years ago.
Right.
But because more people are opening up to the idea that horror can be these new creative, like, it's not just jump scares and ghosts, people are opening up to the idea that it can be different and more creative. And that's what that movie means to me. It's not like I watched it and thought it was a masterpiece or anything like that. It meant to me, and the reason why I loved it as much as I did is because it opens up doors for other people to be more creative. There are people out there that are are thinking about making movies that might not, because, oh, it's too weird, or, oh, it's too new, no one's going to like this will never go anywhere. And seeing a movie like Skinamarink and that it did well and made it to a major streaming platform now gives those people a completely different outlook on it. And we could get masterpiece after masterpiece moving forward because of that. And that's something that's incredibly exciting to me.
Yeah, it's really cool that people are trying new things, because for a while, like I did not care for any new horror movie, because I knew it was gonna, it's all cookie cutter
right.
horror. Like, oh, this is gonna happen, then this and this and that, and it's a classic trope, and it's just a different. And then, I feel like people making horror, like mainstream horror films, don't take it seriously. They see it as a cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really sense that when you're sitting in the theater and like you're ready to like, oh cool, a horror movie, and then you watch it and it's just like, I don't know, there's something about it, like it's not genuine,
Right.
And I feel like people catch on to that, and like you said, like hopefully there's a new era, right, of horror that's gonna come along, and like with all things, there's always the new thing to try, and hopefully people are open up to it and are accepting, because I grew up watching horror too, and
yeah,
it's like some movies were like, this is crazy, like how one of my favorite ones is The Hills Have Eyes.
Sure. Oh, incredible movie.
Oh my goodness, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Was it the 2006 Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Mm-hmm.
That one was, I think that was one of the first movies that I watched where like I actually had to cover my eyes.
Was that the remake with Jessica Biel?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great remake. I'm not the biggest fan of remakes, but that was in my opinion anyway, that was a really well done remake.
Yeah, that was like I said, that was the first movie I saw. That was like I had to not look at some point. I was maybe like, that came out 2006. I was probably like 12 or something, 11.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. It made me like horror movies like a whole lot more. It's probably one of the ones that, like, as far as movies go, made me want to check out more. Because what's interesting is some of my fondest memories as a young kid was with my grandpa. We used to stay up and listen to AM radio.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, there was a show where people would call in and tell like ghost stories and stuff that they've experienced.
That's cool.
And so ever since a little kid, like that's something that I fondly remember, right? And like my grandpa, he's since passed, and like when I think about like some of my favorite moments with him, it was like, just staying up late and listening to these people on the radio telling stories. Yeah, and that's where that came into my life. Like it wasn't anything graphic or anything. It was just it was a medium, right, that we both could be entertained by, and here's this like older gentleman, and I'm like 7-8 years old. Like how much can we have in common? But those are some of the nights where we would talk and like, oh, do you think that's real? And I would have questions and stuff like that, and like if it wasn't for that genre, right, like I probably wouldn't have had those memories, like those specific memories.
Horror bringing generations together for eternities.
Yeah, definitely.
It's awesome.
I can't wait to show some of my favorite horror movies to my kids.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. That's a really great story. That makes me super happy.
Yeah, and I mean, I loved it, right? Because it was just a guy like on the radio, like it wasn't high budget, like
right, yeah. I
mean, and a part of it is like that's almost the essence of like anything horror, right? Like it hits the best stuff is like independent stuff, like low budget stuff.
Oh yeah, my favorite horror movie. It's a movie called As Above, So Below. It's an exploration of the catacombs in Paris. It's an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
All right.
It is absolutely, I personally I love that movie so much. But up until I saw that movie, my favorite movie was The Evil Dead, the original Sam Raimi, low budget, just campy, silly horror movie. And I want to say that movie was made on like $50,000 or something like that. It was like nothing. And it is one of the most influential horror movies ever made. And it was, and I mean, look at Raimi now. I mean, he's directing major action movies for Marvel. It's wild. But that low budget, that feel, it's special for horror movies because it makes you really work to create something that other people could easily put together if they had the budget for it. And I think, I hope anyway, that that's something that never leaves this genre, that people continue to have to force themselves to be more and more creative because they're on a low budget, or because they can't get the right crew, because, I mean, unfortunately, it all comes back down to money. But I look forward to those movies probably more than anything else. The lower budget a horror movie is, the happier I am most of the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it also forces the audience to really focus less on the effects or what have you, because you take yourself out of the what you're actually what's right in front of you and put yourself in the circumstance. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
like, I mean, look at a show like South Park, right? The animation is not that great.
Right.
Even some of the voice acting is not that great, but but like the way they put the story together, the way the plot line advances, and it takes you out of that. Like, you stop seeing what's right there at face value and really focus on the story at hand. And you kind of, the audience's imagination also plays a huge part in that, and that's what's awesome about anything low budget.
Right. Yeah, of course. It's incredible.
Charlie, thank you so much for doing this with me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this was great. I can't wait to hear the show. Anyone that wants to find the podcast or the YouTube channel, or I have a newsletter where you can sign up to get notifications of the show or any freebies that I'm doing, which I plan on doing. I really want to do some freebies just as like a thank you to the people that actually listen, just kind of giveaways, stuff like that. I don't have anything solid with that yet. I'm working on it. But it's www.conjuringoddities.com. And how I got that is beyond me. The fact that was an available domain name is still sort of shocking to me. But yeah, it's just www.conjuringoddities.com, and that'll bring you to my links page where you can check out the podcast at Apple, Spotify, literally anywhere, and also the YouTube channel.
All right, awesome.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Man, I really enjoyed this conversation. Charlie is an incredible podcast guest. There was so much of our conversation that didn't make it into the final cut of this episode, partially due to some technical issues we were having at the beginning, and because I would like to be respectful of your time. Even though the episode still went a little longer than usual, ConjuringOddities.com is where you can find everything related to his show, and the link to that will be in the description. Be sure to go and listen to Conjuring Oddities and let him know you heard him on the show. If you enjoyed the show, please show your support by following on your favorite podcast player, as well as Facebook and Instagram at TFXPod. And check this out. I'd really appreciate your help with growing the show. One of the easiest ways for you to do that is to leave an honest rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening on. If you'd like to take it a step further, the best way for you to show your support is to share the show with your family, your friends, anybody who you think might enjoy the show as much as you do. And remember, actions speak louder than words, and talk is cheap. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.